YTBC, what's the deal? So this is a very late prediction, being that the fight is later on tonight. With that said, though, still gonna be an interesting fight, and I want to do a prediction on the fight. Gerald Washington, let's start with him. You know, he's about 6'6". The weigh-in was yesterday. He weighed in at 246 pounds, which I think is a decent weight for him. When he fought Skip Scott, I remember watching that fight. Kind of a controversial ending to that fight. He knocked Scott down, and Scott got back up and then went back down. It was just a weird ending to that fight. But in that fight, he was 255 pounds. So I like him when he's close to 246. I've seen fights on YouTube. They don't have all his fights, where I didn't see all of them on YouTube, but I did see the not Mike Weaver, but the Aaron Lyons fight. He fought some guy. Last name was Forrest. I forgot his first name. Jason Gavin, Nagy Aguilera was probably his toughest fight, because Aguilera's, a crafty veteran, extensive amateur background. You know, he's a guy that's going to give you different looks in there. You know, he's not a guy you're going to, possibly be able to knock out in 1 or 2 rounds. He will give you some looks, and he will go the distance with you. Sherman Williams fight, I've seen that. Then the Skip Scott fight and the Travis Walker knockout, I've seen that. Big guy, still has to work on how to use the jab. It's not really a jab that, that's impossible to get by, or a jab that you have to take a lot of punishment to get by. One thing about Washington that I noticed is he will get into a fight with you. He's not going to back up or hold or do any of that. He does keep his distance. He can use his jab to keep his distance. Now, when I say it's not a great jab, I'm obviously comparing it to the great jabs in the heavyweight division that I've seen, the Larry Holmes, the Ali's, even, a guy like Pinklon Thomas, who had a pretty good jab, even a guy like Carla Truth Williams, who had a good jab, so he has a good right hand. He's a little wide with his punches at times, but he's an athletic guy, former college football player. He was also in the Navy too. And there's been, memorable heavyweights that come out of the Navy. The two that, jump right out at me that I remember is Mike Weaver and Ken Norton. Guys who played a little bit of football and went to the Navy. Those guys are in shape. Washington's the same way. One thing about him that I noticed, Washington has been pro for a few years now. His last 5 fights, he usually fights guys, he usually takes breaks in between his fights, 2 to 4 months. He's back in the ring, 2 to 4 months. His first 2 years of fighting, the first year he fought 5 times. The second year he fought 5 times. And, he usually, like I said, his last 5 fights, he fights between 2 and 4 months in between fights. This fight, he's had 7 months off. So I'm curious to see what he's going to bring to the ring. What has he learned in these last 7 months? This is the longest his inactivity has been, 7 whole months. So not sure what we're going to see tonight, man. But 7 months, he's had time to, prepare and get ready. And 246 is a good weight for him. He comes in, about 242, anywhere from about 242 to 250 he's been weighing. So 246 is a great weight for him. I'm curious to see what's going to happen once he starts to get tagged, because he's been fighting downhill. What I mean by that is just, hasn't had anything to worry about as far as coming back at him. Now, Nagy Aguilera did do some things. He was showing him a jab. He was doing different things with him, but nothing that was, putting him against the ropes, pinning him, cracking him on his jaw, showing his will and courage. I haven't seen that from him yet with Washington. But if you go to Amir Mansour, he's 43 years old, and he's a different 43. We all know his story. Went to prison for 9 years early in the decade. So we, in the 2000s. So we understand his story. He's not your average 43-year-old. He's in shape. His weight with him, the fight against Joey Dweck, he came in at 210, and during the weigh-in, I was like, dude, this, that's pretty damn low, because he dropped about 23, 24 pounds before the Joey Dweck fight. He had fought Fred Cassie when he knocked Cassie out cold with the right hand, mind you, and Amir Mansour fights out of southpaw. He knocked Cassie out cold with the right hand, his lead hand. And a lot of his fights, man, I'm gonna get to his weight in a second, but a lot of his fights, he has knocked guys down or knocked them out with his right hand. He actually knocked Cunningham down twice with the right hand. cut Cunningham in that fight, knocked Cassie out with the right hand. Even caught Dweko a few times, knocked Calvin Price down. I mean, he's catching guys with his lead hand, and he's showing that he has power. He's showing that he has power in both hands, and that's something a lot of heavyweights don't have and they don't possess. I didn't see that with Gerald Washington. I see a lot of power in that right hand, but I don't see it in both hands the way I see it in Amir Mansour. And you can pretty much say the whole damn heavyweight division, there's guys that don't have power in both hands like that. There's only a handful of guys, you know. So I watched a lot of Mansour fights, the Kelvin Price fight. And the reason I bring up Kelvin Price, he has a long reach, and Washington has he has an 82-inch reach. Very long, you know. Mansour has a 74-inch reach, but I think he's the better boxer than Washington. Fighting off his back foot, feints, parry with punches, counter ability. I think he's the better all-around fighter than Gerald Washington. I think he's a better fighter than Gerald Washington, like I said, with the hands, the feinting. Just he knows more of the nuances of fighting than Washington does, and he's just as rough, just as tough. So whatever Washington brings to the table, Mansour is going to bring it right back. He is a smaller man, though. He is coming into the ring, you know, being outweighed by 25 pounds, you know, back to his weight. Now, he was at 210 against Dweko. Before that, against Cassie, he was 230 pounds. He lost, you know, 24 something pounds, 24, 23 pounds. 221 is good for him. That's where I like him at. That 210 I thought was too light when he came in the ring. You know, I thought that was way too light. 220 is a good weight for him. You know, I think it's going to be a good weight. I think he's going to be quick, fast, and powerful. He has power in both hands, man. And this fight's scheduled for 10 rounds. I can see it going 10 rounds. I'm going to pick Mansour by a 9th round stoppage. I think he's going to stop Washington. If he doesn't stop him, Washington's going to get hurt, probably knocked down. He's going to get cut, probably. He's going to get hurt, man. He's not going to go unscathed in this fight. Being that when guys get in there with Mansour, whether it's a headbutt or I know in the Dweko fight, they clashed heads, they had cuts. Guys are always getting cut, knocked down or something when they fight Mansour. He's just a rough customer, man. And he can fight off his back foot. He can do a lot of things. And they list him at 6'1", but he's more like 5'10" because he crouches. He fights out of a crouch. So Washington, he fights straight up like a 6'6" guy. He's going to be more like 6'8" tonight because Mansour drops his height. He goes from 6'1" to about 5'10". He fights out of a little bit of a crouch. He's a real crafty. He's a crafty power puncher. Crafty power puncher with both hands. And I was looking at the rankings. I looked at BoxRec, and they have Mansour the 20th rated heavyweight overall. His U.S. ranking is number 7. Gerald Washington, he's 35th ranked overall. His U.S. ranking is number 12. So with those numbers I just told you, I went and looked at all the sanctioning bodies. And Mansour, I expect Washington, but Mansour is not in the top 15 of the WBO, the WBC, the WBA, or the IBF. But yet the WBO has a guy named Edmund Gerber rated number 9. Joseph Parker, a young up-and-coming guy that I like. WBO has him rated number 6. The IBF has Andy Ruiz, another guy. I wish he would keep his weight down and come in and look the part and not like the damn Michelin man. But he has quick hands. He's a good fighter, also good amateur pedigree. Andy Ruiz is rated number 14 by the IBF. The WBA has Frez Okendo rated number 4. And I know Okendo had a back and forth fight with Ruzan Chagayev. I think they were supposed to have a rematch. I think it fell through. I'm not sure. But he's rated number 4. The WBC has Chris Arreola rated number 12. You know, so, and nothing against Chris Arreola. He's a world title contender, but he's lost all of them. You know what I mean? All of his shots at the title. What I'm saying is Amir Mansour is not in nobody's top 15. Bach Rex, you know, has was smart enough to have him in their top 20. He's definitely a top 15 heavyweight fighter. And if you ask him, he's in a top 5, top 10, which he's supposed to think that. But at the very least, he's a top 15 guy. And for none of these sanctioned bodies to have him in their top 15, I think it's kind of odd if you ask me. But tonight's going to be a good fight, man. It's a good heavyweight fight. If you like hard-hitting heavyweights, big heavyweights, watch the fight tonight. Mansour's a guy, I'm telling you, man, the dude has power in both hands. Go watch the fights. None, I'm just saying here, go watch him. Go watch how he knocked out Fred Cassie cold with the right hand. Watch how he, and Steve Cunningham is happy that they have Steve Smoger as a referee that fight, because a lot of refs would have looked at him after that. I believe it was the second knockdown when he was on the ropes with his head on the ropes. They just would have looked at that scene and waved the fight. But you know, Steve Smoger will let you, you know, climb up from the dead before he counts you out. And even when he did get up, looked like Smoger gave him a lot of time, was talking to Cunningham. I don't know. He gave Cunningham a lot of time to recuperate. A lot of refs would have probably stopped it. You know, Mansour showed that he can go down also because Cunningham knocked him down. But the thing about Cunningham, and he has an 82-inch reach just like Washington. But the difference between Washington and Cunningham, even though they have the same reach, we know that Washington's bigger, stronger, but Cunningham's pedigree of just his the level of opponents he's fought and the caliber of a fighter that he is. He has an intelligent 82-inch reach. Where Washington, he's just a big guy with long-ass arms. So until he can use his reach in an intelligent way and make that right hand come behind it and make those jabs count, everything doesn't have to be a hard jab. You can, you know, stick the jab out there just to keep your reach, man, to keep that distance, keep his distance, and land long right hands. He has a tendency to loop his right hand. So he's not really a long, you know, point A to point B straight puncher. He's more of a looper. He likes to loop and hook. So, but he's been off for 7 months, man. I know he's learned something. I know he's got some sparring in with Dominic Brazil, another young up-and-coming guy who I thought lost his last, or at least draw at the very least with Fred Cassie. Fred Cassie they've been dissing him, man, ever since his knockout loss to Amir Mansour. The Areola fight, they had it a draw. I thought Cassie won that. And then the last fight with Brazil, a draw at the very least. One judge gave Brazil 10 rounds. But anyways, that's a different topic for a different video. But I'm going to pick Amir Mansour either by late stoppage, 9th, 10th round, or I think he's going to just win the decision, 10 rounds. I do think there's going to be a knockdown. Both these guys, I mean, you watch and he's 6'6", 246. He's a big guy. If Mansour goes in there and try to have a slugfest, there's a possibility he can get knocked out. I seen the Aaron Lyons dude. It was either the Aaron Lyons or the Forrest guy that Washington fought. He knocked him out completely cold. I believe it was the Forrest fight. He beat up Travis Walker pretty bad too. Watch that. It's going to be a good fight tonight. YTBC, I'm out.